So she got her feet taken up with Tiff Hayes a little bit.
That wasn't pretty. Indiana Fever got their ass kicked by the Golden State Valkyries.
Caitlin Clark's big return wasn't supposed to look like this, not even close. Fans expected fireworks. What they got was a blackout. The Indiana Fever were absolutely dismantled by the Golden State Valkyries 80-61, and the scoreboard doesn't even begin to tell the story. This wasn't just a loss, it was a public basketball breakdown. Live on center court, the team looked flat, disorganized, and lifeless on both ends. And poor Caitlin, just back from injury, was thrown into the fire, starting at small forward like some bizarre basketball experiment gone wrong.
What the hell was that? What the hell was that?
The Valkyries? Oh, they showed up. They bullied Indiana on their own floor at 11 a.m., which for them felt like a 9 a.m. boot camp. But it didn't matter. They showed more energy, more hustle, and way more chemistry. Meanwhile, the Fever played like they just pulled an all-nighter. No identity, no rhythm, no clue. And now the internet's wondering out loud if this team's even built to win with or without Caitlin. Let's just say, if this game was a comeback, it came back to bite them. If you're still riding with the Fever after that mess, do us a favor, tap that like button and subscribe. It helps more than Stephanie White running an actual offense, and we need every bit of support to keep calling it like we see it. Now let's talk about how the Hope Train derailed before it even left the station. With Clark returning, expectations were sky high. Fans were ready for some redemption, especially after that ugly loss to the Sparks. But what they got instead, a sequel, same horror, different villain. The Valkyries walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse like they owned it and immediately snatched the energy from the crowd. And you'd think with Clark and Boston back in the lineup, Indiana would stick to what used to work, the classic two-woman game that always got them off to hot starts. But nope, that script got tossed in the shredder. There was no rhythm, no pick and roll magic, no spark. Just awkward possessions, rush shots, and players looking around like, wait, are we running anything here? It was clear from the opening minutes that this wasn't going to be a feel-good story. It was the Fever looking like they had just rolled out of bed, while the Valkyries were already 5 steps into a game plan and executing it perfectly. Let's be real, if you're shooting 31% from the field at home, you might want to check if the rim has a lid on it. That's how bad things got for the Fever. Caitlin Clark had 10 points on 4 of 12 shooting, and while she showed flashes of her old self with a deep three and that signature floater, most of her damage was done in the first quarter. After that, crickets. And it wasn't just her. Lexi Hull, Kelsey Mitchell, Indiana's known shooters, couldn't buy a bucket. It felt like every possession ended with a forced shot or a panic pass. Meanwhile, the Valkyries were having a field day. They ripped off a 12-1 run, then hit the Fever again with 2 separate 9-0 bursts. That's 3 body shots before Indiana could even blink. And here's a question for the viewers. Who do you think should wear the blame for this collapse? Clark, Coach White, or the whole squad? Drop your take in the comments. Or if you think Indiana's game plan was MIA, just comment "found it in the lost and found," because that's where the offense seems to be hiding. The Valkyries didn't just win, they dominated. And not because they had one superstar go off, but because they played like a team. Kayla Thornton dropped 18 points, sure, but she shot just 4-15. This wasn't about one hot hand, it was about system, structure, and straight up hustle. Everyone on Golden State was moving, rotating, fighting for rebounds, and making smart reads. It was like watching a choreographed performance. Meanwhile, Indiana looked like they were stuck in rehearsal. The Valks turned defense into instant offense and made the Fever look completely rattled. And let's not forget, these girls were playing at what basically felt like 9 a.m. their time. While Indiana had the home crowd, the rest, the advantage, they still got punched in the mouth. The Valkyries' 12-1 and 9-0 runs weren't just scoring streaks, They were statements. Statements that said, we're not scared of Caitlin Clark, we're not scared of your crowd, and we came to win. It was grown women basketball, and Indiana looked like they weren't even invited to the court. Now let's talk about the elephant on the sideline. Stephanie White. Can somebody explain what kind of offense this team is running? Because from the looks of it, it's called vibes and vibes only. The two-woman game between Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, the one thing that actually worked earlier in the season, was completely abandoned. Instead, the Fever looked like 5 strangers trying to run open gym without a clipboard in sight. Meanwhile, the Valkyries were running clean sets, cutting with purpose, setting smart screens, and executing after every timeout. That's a coaching clinic, and it all traces back to head coach Natalie Nakase. She had her squad locked in, disciplined, confident, and hungry. If anyone deserved a standing ovation after that game, it was her. In contrast, Stephanie White looked like she was trying random lineups just to see what would stick. Clark at small forward, Boston barely playing in key stretches. Nothing made sense. If the Fever have a system, it must be in invisible ink because nobody watching could read it. And in a league that rewards structure and hustle, that's how you get embarrassed. Twice in a row at home. Let's be honest, some of these lineups look like they were pulled from a raffle. Ari McDonald running point, while Clark shifts to small forward. That's not strategy, that's straight confusion. And it gets worse. Aaliyah Boston, your all-star big and arguably the most consistent player on the roster, was sitting on the bench for long stretches while the game slipped away. By the start of the fourth, she'd barely logged 20 minutes. Meanwhile, McDonald already had nearly 30. And Natasha Howard? Just 16 minutes total. What are we doing here? Even if Clark was being eased back in, starting her at the 3 makes 0 sense, unless you're actively trying to throw off the rhythm of the entire team. The Fever weren't just outplayed, they were outmanaged. This isn't about talent anymore. This is about basic decision making. You've got shooters in Clark, Mitchell, and Hull, but you're not running anything to get them clean looks. No sets, no screens, no spacing, just chaos. And when chaos becomes your system, losing becomes your pattern. The Fever didn't just get beat on talent, they got beat on logic. All right, let's throw the Fever a bone, because buried under the rubble were a couple of glimmers. Caitlin Clark did have her moments. That deep 3 she buried from the parking lot, vintage, and her floater off the Boston Steel, smooth as ever. But these highlights were more like movie trailers. Exciting, but nowhere near enough to carry the full feature. Michaela Timpson deserves a shout out too. She came off the bench with some fire, dropping 10 points on 5 of 9 shooting, grabbing 6 boards, and even blocking 2 shots. It was a kind of hustle that reminded fans what effort should look like, but that's where the good news ends. Indiana never strung those flashes into momentum. It was like watching someone try to light a match in a windstorm. Brief sparks, then nothing. The team never fed off those moments. No energy shift, no rally, just more missed shots, broken sets, and blank stares. You could almost feel the crowd clinging to every bucket, hoping something would click. It didn't. This wasn't a slump, it was a full-on basketball blackout. So what are we left with after Caitlin Clark's big return? A wake-up call, plain and simple. The Valkyries didn't just beat the Fever, they exposed every crack in the foundation. Indiana looked unprepared, unorganized, and uninspired. And while Caitlin had a few highlight-worthy moments, it was clear she couldn't carry this team on her own, especially not when she's being plugged into awkward lineups and ice-cold rotations. Meanwhile, Golden State came in like a unit, punched first, and never looked back. It's games like this that make you wonder, does Indiana have a plan, or are they just hoping talent will eventually figure it out? Because hope isn't a strategy, and if this team keeps running on fumes, they'll keep getting run off their own floor. But hey, that's just us. What do you think? Drop your thoughts below, we want to hear it all. And if you've made it this far, don't ghost us now. Like the video, drop a comment, and smash that subscribe button like the Valkyries smashed Indiana's defensive scheme, and hit that bell so you're first in line when the next meltdown or miracle hits the court.